could I ask you please to move into a position where you'll be able to observe the formal part of the evening. So if you're able to bring a drink and a few little nibblies, it'd be nice if you could have a drink because we're going to have one toast shortly. Unless it's that one. Okay, if everybody's comfortable, I'm sorry that we had a bit of a letdown, but it's not a major one. We will still have the evening as planned, just minus a 1-minute video, so that's not important. But what is important that you've all come here tonight, and I'd like to wish you a welcome to the launch of this book, A Fortuitous Foray into France. And it's taken a while. We've had lots of ups and downs, and finally we're here at this night when the book's being launched, and I feel very proud of the fact that it's all finally happening. So thank you very much for coming along. I did have my copy somewhere. I think, is that it? Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Alistair. Alistair, who just picked up the book and gave it to me, taught me, along with Marie-Laure Vuaille-Barcan, and at University of Newcastle, and you'll hear a little bit, you'll read about them both in this book, of course, but we're going to hear later from Marie-Laure, but I'll go through some earlier bits first of all. So, I was going to play you a video, and what happened was I did a video in La Rochelle, and I had a shot of me standing in front of the camera with Tour Saint-Nicolas behind me, little ferry that I used to catch every day into town, and the most picturesque old harbour of La Rochelle. And I was standing in front of the camera saying, "Bonjour, je m'appelle Gerry Collins, et voici ma ville, La Rochelle," which was, "G'day, I'm Gerry Collins, and this is my town, La Rochelle." And by that stage, it had become my town, and it was great to do that little video. So I used that little bit, and I went down to the harbour and stood in front of one of the coal boats going out and said, "G'day, I'm Gerry Collins, and this is my town, Newcastle." I was then able to shove that in front of the La Rochelle one and lead into an ad for the book, essentially. So I was going to open, therefore, after that by saying, "Bonsoir, je m'appelle Gerry Collins, et voici le lancement de mon livre, A Fortuitous Foray into France. Vous êtes toutes et tous bienvenus ici au magnifique bâtiment cul de l'Université de Newcastle, au pays Awabaka." Good evening, I'm Gerry Collins, and this is the launch of my book, A Fortuitous Foray into France. You're all most welcome here at this magnificent Kew building and of the University of Newcastle in Awabakal country. Tonight is a time when we celebrate the fact that a dream became a reality, and this little baby was born. Shortly, Dr Marie-Laure Vuaille-Barcan, Senior Lecturer in French at the University of Newcastle, will officially launch A Fortuitous Foray into France. It'll be a moment of great joy for me, not only that the book's being launched, but that it's Marie-Laure who will send it on its way to the bookshops. I hope. They're still stalled trying to get there. I had the great fortune of having Marie-Laure as a teacher when I did a diploma in languages in 2012 and 2013 at this university. I found her a most inspiring teacher, but she was more than that. She's a very lively, interesting and interested member of the university staff. And as a student, I felt extremely fortunate to be studying a subject that I loved and being entertained and challenged all the way by this impressive French woman. Bienvenue et merci Marie-Laure. C'est un privilège pour moi que tu sois ici avec nous ce soir. It's a privilege to welcome you, Marie-Laure. After the book is launched, you will meet another dynamic woman who has established herself as a very well-respected French teacher at the high-achieving Warners Bay High School. Rebeca Tamas has hit the world like a whirlwind after completing her degree and teacher training at this university. I thought I was being game taking on the study of French literature at the University of La Rochelle. Rebeca took on a course in Chinese to go along with her French studies. That's led to her now teaching Chinese beginners, French and Japanese, and she also speaks Romanian and Spanish. And here she is. And of course we're going to hear from Rebeca in English. I assume, maybe a bit of French, whatever. Great to have you here, Rebeca, and thank you for taking on this little job for me. I appreciate it. We were two of the 7 very fortunate students from the University of Newcastle who were to share the incredible experience of studying for the 2nd semester of 2013 at La Rochelle in France. Another one of the group, Andrew Dunn, is also here tonight, and it's great to see you. Andrew, it's been a while, and Andrew has just recently had a little baby girl as well, so it's great to hear that news. I've asked Rebeca to share some of her experiences of that magical time, which was to become the book that we're launching tonight. I'll round out the night with some reflections on my journey with this book and will then be available to sign copies. Sadly, some of our intended guests have been unable to be here with us. It seems that COVID is taking a heavy toll. I want to make special mention of Dr Marie-Laure Ramsland and Emeritus Professor John Ramsland, who have not only proven to be wonderful friends of mine, they became key advisors as we got to the latter stages of the production of this book. You'd think it impossible to find someone to read your book who speaks French, who's been on an exchange to La Rochelle, and who knows the bumpy road of dealing with publishers and the production process. I found all of that in Marie. If that wasn't enough, John has had a long and impressive academic career at this university in history and has written at least 18 non-fiction books. A large number of those has been published by Brolder Publishing, publishers also of A Fortuitous Foray into France. Marie told me on Saturday that they would not make it tonight, and I was devastated that they would not be here for this key event. I told Marie, though, that I would toast her on the night, so could you all join me in drinking a toast to Marie and John Ramsland. Can you get me another quarter? I have the great fortune of having 5 children and 7 grandchildren. They're all dear to me, and I'm over the moon about the fact that 2 of my daughters have flown down from Brisbane to be with us tonight. Kathy is the oldest. Hooray, Kath. Yeah. The oldest of my children and a keen student of French. Indeed, it was Kathy's experience as a high school international exchange student which led her to the most beautiful French family imaginable, La Famille Gaillard, who live in the town of Le Puy-en-Velay in central France. They were amazingly kind to Kathy, and because from time to time I ended up in Europe with my work, I used to often visit them. On the early visits, they knew no English, and I had only my basic schoolboy French. I soon found it wasn't good enough and started studying French more intensely. Libby, my daughter, where are you, Libby? Up the back there. And you'll see that, of course, she has a nice little group with her. She has my 3 beautiful grandchildren, Quinn, Felix, and Ari. And it's great to have you here. Of course, Quinn, Ari, and Felix are here to see the launch of the book written by their Pepe, French name for grandfather or papa. Libby was also a high school exchange student, and she went to Bolivia's capital, La Paz. Libby hence became a top student of Spanish and is able to use it with her amazing work as a lawyer helping international refugees. Libby was also one of the first people to read this book on a mobile phone, mind you. She was very positive in her reaction to it, which gave me great encouragement. Many people have helped in so many ways in the long journey to today. When I moved from Brisbane to Newcastle after retiring from my wonderful job as a sports broadcaster with the ABC, my partner Robin Hankin suggested that I return to studying French. I'd studied for 3 years at the University of Queensland and loved every minute of it. I certainly did not regret taking on a diploma in languages at the University of Newcastle because it gave me the chance to do an exceptional thing, to become an international exchange student in La Rochelle on the French Atlantic coast. Robin came and joined me in France for 2 weeks in the middle of the semester, and I cherished our time together. She's also put up with my Francophilia and accepts that I will always want to go to France if we're planning a holiday in Europe. Robin has done an enormous amount of work to ensure that tonight is well catered for and that we make your night as good as we can. Of course, she's always the first person who gets to read anything I write, and I've always valued her support immensely. Thank you, beautiful Butchie. Robin's sister, Maureen Bonamini, followed me a few years later and did the same exchange to La Rochelle. She lent her assistance by reading and pointing out more things that needed reviewing. Thanks, Maureen. It's great to have you here. My brothers, Ray and his wife Annette, John, and our honorary brother Greg Danvers and Phil are here as well. It's great that Betty Collins, our sister-in-law, can be here, but unfortunately Mike, Chris and Justin have been unable to make it. To Scott Bevan, who wrote a beautiful article on the book in Saturday's Newcastle Herald, and who was a fellow broadcaster with the ABC for many years, including overlapping years in Brisbane. I'll always remember your ready acceptance of me when I reached out to you for support, knowing how much I admired your skills with both the written word and spoken word. I'm now proud to call you a mate. Good on you. To all of you, our friends, family, fellow students and fellow Francophiles, I hope you enjoy the night and then enjoy reading this book. And now, let's move on to the launch. Excuse the French. Quand j'ai lu le livre pour la première fois, j'étais inquiet, car il me semblait que j'ai écrit Marie-Laure Vuaille comme la méchante du livre. C'était parce que j'ai écrit plusieurs fois qu'elle m'a dit « Il faut étudier au niveau B2 ». Mais il y avait un examen pour déterminer à quel niveau nous étudierons. Et que passerait-il si j'obtenais de mauvais résultats? Avant, pendant et après le test, j'ai entendu la voix de Marie-Laure dans mes oreilles. Il faut étudier au niveau B2. Now, what did that all mean? When I read the book for the first time, I was worried because it seemed to me that I had written Marie-Laure as the villain of the book. That's because I'd written several times that she'd said that I had to study French at B2 level. But there was an exam to determine at which level we sat, at which level we would study, and what might happen if I didn't qualify for that level. Before, during and after the test, I heard the voice of Marie-Laure in my ears saying, "You must study French at B2 level." But of course, she wasn't being a villain, she was being a good teacher, pushing me to aim higher. That was reflective for me of the many teaching skills Marie-Laure possesses. So in fact, I wasn't asking the villain of the book to launch it, rather a woman who had heroically pushed, prodded and encouraged me through my journey in French. It is therefore a pleasure to ask Dr Marie-Laure Vuaille-Barcan, Senior Lecturer in French at the University of Newcastle and Président de l'Alliance Française de Newcastle, to officially launch a Fortuitous Foray into France.
Bonsoir tout le monde. I've decided to do two things tonight before I read. Because it's about France, I thought I should exaggerate my French accent. but it's a lot of efforts. I'll do my best. And also I thought it would be a good idea to take a heavy Gauloise smoker voice. So that explains everything. I'm feeling honored and privileged to have the pleasure of launching Gerry's book. And then the title, which is so hard to say. Fortuitous Foray into France recounts Gerry's adventures in France in 2013 as part, as you know, of an exchange program between Newcastle Uni and the University of La Rochelle on the Atlantic coast. This is the first time that one of my former students who won this prestigious scholarship has recounted his adventures and shared his reflection on the experience. I had the pleasure of having Gerry in my class of advanced French that year, and I was delighted to hear he wanted to be immersed in the French language and culture for a semester, thanks to the Calvert-Hartley Exchange scholarships. As explained in the book, Professor Calvert-Hartley, Foundation Professor French at the University of Newcastle in 1965, nice word coming, bequeathed his money to fund a scholarship for students of French. Professor Hartley wanted to encourage bright, young students to study in France, as he had done himself. Yes, I said bright and young. Gerry talks about his age several times in his book. But he also tells of a party where the hostess apologized to him that there were so many old people, meaning not enough young ones like him. Bright and young, Gerry is exactly that. Bright, no doubt. Young in heart and mind, and dare I say it, much more than some of the 20-something students I've known over the years. Courageous and very modest, I might add. It takes courage to go back to university in Australia after a successful career and embark on a semester of studies abroad in a second language. It takes courage to overcome the countless challenges that he met. He never gave up. He was persistent in his efforts and very modest. I was surprised to read, and you've just spoken about it, that I had caused him quite a bit of stress when I suggested that he take a French course at B2 level, that is to say advanced, because I always knew he was capable of that level. Another adjective to describe Gerry came to mind after I read the book. Curious, meaning interested in learning about people or things around him. His book is full of anecdotes and historical details about the places he visited and the people he met, which makes it a very interesting and enjoyable read. You will learn, because you're going to read it, a lot about La Rochelle, its 3 towers, Bordeaux, Saint-Émilion, the Champagne region. Is there a theme here? Reims, the Veuve Clicquot, his neighbors, Monsieur Tarteau-Prune, his lecturers, and of course the local and national sport teams. There are also some moments that Gerry calls embarrassing when you don't understand something in the other language, which are very funny for the reader, but I guess only afterwards for the protagonist. I remember one anecdote Gerry told me once. A Frenchman asks him, "Vous êtes d'où?" which could be translated literally as "you are soft," or "sweet," or "pleasant," and left Gerry bewildered. But the first meaning is rather, "Where do you come from?" Or, as he explained in the chapter called L'abattant, the toilet lid, when he said, "Il y a seulement une boule," meaning there is only a bowl and no toilet lid. But he was really saying, there is only one pétanque ball. Later, Gerry was really pleased to have learned a new word, l'abattant, and was soon to discover the word la lunette, toilet seat, not to be confused, of course, with les lunettes, glasses. Hence the importance of context in language learning. Challenge is probably the word that comes up most often in the book. It ranges from the most ordinary, the word for the toilet lid, how to write a check, to the most demanding passing examinations like the DELF B2, writing an essay in French on a novel by Gide. This book is very well written, although it's not in French. After all, Gerry is a trained English teacher, and for me, a real page turner. I wouldn't go so far as to say a thriller, but close. To use the titles of 2 chapters after the initial shock. How many bureaucratic hurdles? Will he give up? Give in to despair? Never. Jamais. I wondered why. As you know, Gerry had a long career as a leading sports commentator with the ABC. He broadcasted 23 Australian Olympic gold medal wins and covered 3 Rugby World Cups, including broadcasting Australia's win in the 1999 final in Wales. He was approached to write No Bull, the memoir of Australian Test cricketer Andy Bickle. Not something else. Not Bichel.
No.
By the way, no bull and not no ball for no toilet seat. I think that after years of watching great athletes, Gerry has taken advantage of their lessons in persistence and determination to progress in French, practicing constantly, and even after the 4 months in La Rochelle, deciding to read French literature in the original language and to listen to French radio on the internet to continue this journey. Obviously, Gerry is a model student all teachers and lecturers dream of. Someone who takes advantage of every opportunity to progress, who does not refuse linguistic or cultural differences, but seeks to learn something new all the time. The qualities I mentioned earlier: courage, tenacity, curiosity, modesty, are the best guarantees for a successful learning of a foreign language and culture. I would like most of my students to be like Gerry, and I intend to ask the Calvert-Hartley Bequest to buy his book, True, and offer it to future exchange students to show them how to make the most of this experience. There is a French phrase you probably know, attributed to Montaigne, one of the most significant philosophers of the French Renaissance, that is, les voyages forment la jeunesse. Travels shape youth. Yes, travels shape youth of the mind, and thanks to your determination, Gerry. If in France next time someone asks you the question, vous êtes d'où? You can certainly answer, je suis Rochelais. Félicitations, Gerry, for this inspiring foray, well thought out, not at all fortuitous.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, Marie-Laure. It's funny that you mentioned the vous êtes d'où, because when I heard it was in a shop, and the guy said, vous êtes d'où? And I thought, am I sweet? No, I thought, you know, the old Australian adage, yeah, I'm sweet, mate. All right. So it can mean sweet, and as Marie-Laure said, various other interpretations, but of course it is, where are you from? And fortunately, before I said, yeah, I'm sweet, mate, the penny dropped, oh, je suis Australien. But as Marie-Laure said, I certainly feel that there's a part of me now well and truly that's Rochelle. It's now a great pleasure to introduce Rebeca Tamas. During our time in La Rochelle, Rebeca stood out as a student with an enormous amount of enthusiasm and energy, one who was always keen to try different things that might interest her or that would help her advance her own knowledge and future. She and I were amongst the few students there who took on the chance to do a DELF test, a French government exam test to test your level of French. And of course we had to do it at B2. I remember well that Rebeca telling me that she had asked a local French student, Aurora Bouillon, to meet with the two of us for coffee so that we could practice our French with a true francophone in attendance, which was a brilliant idea, of course, but I wasn't doing enough other practice, I don't think. I seem to recall that in the semester break or thereabouts, while many of us tried tourism, Rebeca went to an international youth forum representing Romania. This is the sort of person that Romania is, that Rebeca is. Within 5 years of our La Rochelle experience, Rebeca was out teaching and amazingly replacing the highly respected and talented Lynn Sherwood as head teacher of languages at Warners Bay High School. Could you please welcome Rebeca Tamas?
Thank you so much for inviting me to speak tonight. I do feel really honoured to be able to help in this launch of your book. So when we first got this copy of your book, my husband picked it up and he started enthusiastically flipping through these pages, and I have never seen him be so enthusiastic with a book. Mind you, he was skim reading for my name.